Before getting into the first story, I did want to put a quick trigger warning, as this story does discuss topics such as suicide and euxoricide, which is the term for a husband murdering his wife. And so I did want to put that out there, that this is in the story. And if you aren't in the headspace for that today, please be kind to your mind, and I will see you in the next one. The first story is titled, My Kindergarten Teacher Prevented a Child Murder. I live in a small town in Denmark with a population of roughly 3,000 people, where nothing ever really happens, and the following scared the entire town to death. Back in 2005 or so, when I was still in kindergarten, a strange and agitated man who was a father to one of the children came and demanded my teacher that he wanted to see his daughter and take her out of school. My teacher could see in his eyes that something was not right and that he was extremely upset. He therefore denied him to see his daughter, and after a very uncomfortable discussion, the father eventually gave up, walked to his car without looking back, and drove home. My teacher grew very worried and decided to call the local police to go check the family's house. Later that day, it came on the news that the father had murdered his own wife with a gun, and afterwards shot himself in the head. At the time, my best friend lived next door to the family, and he has since told me that he could hear the mother screaming in a very horrifying way, followed by 3 gunshots, a grown man crying his heart out, 10 seconds of silence, and then finally, 1 more gunshot. It creeps me out just to think about this, and I feel so sorry for the daughter, who was left an orphan at such a young age. I really do not know what would have happened if my teacher had not stopped the man from taking her home with him. I hope you're having a decent life wherever you are, girl. The next story is titled, The Creepy Guy I Dated is a Murderer. As a teenager, I waited tables in a local restaurant to pay for the gas for my car. I met Mr. Creep there. In my naive mind, he seemed normal at first, despite the fact that he was 20 and wanted to date a 17-year-old. Leaving my job after dark scared me, so I taught myself to get in my car, shut the door, and lock it in one fluid motion. It made me feel safe. One night, I was leaving work and had just gotten into my car when Mr. Creep seemed to appear out of nowhere, yanking my door handle to try to open it. I looked into his eyes in the split second before he smiled, and what I saw absolutely chilled my bones. I don't know how to describe the evil I saw. From then on, I was terrified of him, but I didn't let on because I was afraid of what he might do if I ever told him that I never wanted to see him again. After this, he constantly lied to try to impress me and tried to invent ways of being alone with me. But my instinct was to run, so I avoided him. About 2 weeks after this incident, the restaurant got robbed, and there was significant evidence against Mr. Creep, just not the kind that allowed the cops to charge him. I sent all of my text conversations with Mr. Creep to the police chief, in hopes that it would help. Mr. Creep slithered away after that, but I always looked over my shoulder. About 5 years ago, he messaged me on Facebook out of the blue. He went on about his top secret military clearance and a huge acreage he owned. It made me nervous, and I felt like he was trying to spring a trap or something, but I tried to put it out of my mind. Then today, I was looking at posts about an unsolved murder when I saw his mugshot. He is now facing murder charges as well as 2 other violent felony charges. I am so glad that he is locked up, but so overwhelmed about how correct my instincts were about Mr. Creep. I feel like I escaped him. So quick tangent. I think I've maybe said this before, but I used to be a waitress in both restaurants and then also bars. And so a lot of times I would get home pretty late, especially at the bar that I worked at. They closed really late. And so if I was working a later shift, I often was getting home at like past midnight, and I would have to walk to my car. And eventually they put in place, where we'd have like buddies, to walk us to our cars because of situations like this. The final story is titled, Delivery Guy Screamed at Me through the phone and kicked my door. I ordered a board game on Amazon last week. It got delivered today. I was just sitting on the couch when I got a phone call. The guy doesn't speak my language, but I understand it's the delivery guy. I replied yes in the language he was speaking to when he said, "Are you home?" I started to run downstairs because my intercom isn't working, while the guy screams on the phone with me to open the door. He started kicking the building's front door, which made me stop a little as I am a girl and both my boyfriend and roommate were upstairs, but I would be going downstairs by myself. When I got there, he had dropped the package on my front step and was standing far off. He looked distraught and his eyes were red. He asked if the package was for me, and I nodded, and I grabbed the package and closed the door as soon as possible. I'm terrified that he might come back since he knows where I live. I don't know why he was acting that way. I was as fast as I could be. There's actually an update to this story, which I will read. It said, I've reported him to Amazon. They will investigate the situation and reach out to me again if they need to. Thank you for your comments. I think it's good I reported him. I just hope he doesn't remember where I live. Thank you so much for joining me. It's goodbye for now, but I hope to haunt you again soon.